Hello everyone, and welcome to another Gear Talk. If you couldn't tell by the coughing, we're covering the next issue of the Gears of War comic discussion series, Harper's Story. So yes, we're covering quite a bit involving Rustlung. Harper's Story, a very interesting read in the comic series. So we're going to do things a little bit, not really different, but the format of how I'm doing it's going to be a little different for this one. So in the story of Harper's Story, there is a situation where, when it comes to the dialogue of everything, just a little disclaimer for what we're getting into, there is no dialogue. This is all Harper's memories and thoughts and everything like that, so there is no situation where Harper and Barrick are talking to one another, or Harper and Merryweather are talking to each other, Harper and Jace are talking to each other. None of that happens at all. This is all in his head, and the format in general for the comic is different because each page is essentially its own panel. So you have it where a full spread sheet is just one scene going on instead of broken down into different panels within a comic. So, and this is a little bit behind the scenes we'll cover, but you'll understand. When I do these discussion series and I go into edit, I like to take the panels themselves that I'm talking about and put them up in the corner, in one of these corners here. And kind of just like this is what we're kind of looking at, and I'll white out all the words for two reasons. The main reason is that YouTube, I don't want to be going up and putting up someone else's material on here and having a chance of YouTube being mad at me. I don't want that to happen, so that's why I do the singular comic panels, take out the words, talk about it, and take it off screen. That's why we do it. The second reason, and a large reason also, is because this is someone else's work for these comics. Other people have gone through and written them, helped put them together, the artists involved with them, publishing. All of this was done by people who put their time and energy, and yes, because of the time and energy, money is involved, where a transaction of I made this product, buy it from me, monetization, capitalism, throw out any word that involves money, that's basically what you get. So I feel it wrong to take someone else's content that they have worked hard on and should be paid for their work and kind of just freebie giving out the whole comic. So that's why I don't put the whole pages with all the words and everything, because this was someone else's work. If you want the full breakdown of everything and your own thoughts on what you're reading and looking at, I highly advise you go out and purchase the content, like the comics, or when I go over and like talk about the games or the books, go out and purchase these things, because they are, first off, great things to own and have, but also you are helping basically keep people in work. You're keeping the work flowing. You're keeping like the coalition with their stuff, with getting Gears of War E-Day and these other games published out. They wouldn't be able to do this without money, and we are the people who give them money. Capitalistic society, but that's just how you get it. Anyway, now the disclaimer's out of the way, let's jump into Harper's Story proper. The first page we get is the introduction to our main character of this issue, which is Jonathan Harper, which we also learn he is a sergeant. We get Sargent Harper here, and he is actually over with the rest of the Gears, and we see Barrick here also. For anyone who did not know, during the time of Harper in his story, when he first starts everything off, he is a part of the same squad Barrick is, and this is taking place in 14 AE. So this is actually before the situation we have with Hollow, where we have Barrick and we see where he was during the events of Gears of War 1. He was with Jonathan Harper. So later on we learn that it's just Barrick that survives everything. He's the last of his original squad and he is placed over with Delta. But for the time being right now, we have it where he is with Harper. And they are over at Timgod. For anyone who does not know why Timgod is a big thing, that is where the light mass bomb was set off, and that is where the big boom happened. That is where Rom died. Technically that bomb went off a little bit outside of Timgod, but Timgod is the general area where the Gears were fighting to make sure the bomb could be set off. And we have it where him, Barrick, and their squad are there, and this is where we also learn where they saw the entire situation of the explosion, where they said it was like God screaming at the earth. That's how powerful this explosion was. We give a lot of stuff to like the Hammer of Dawn and like the sinking of Jacinto. We never really sit back and think too much about how much of a powerful bomb actually went off over at Timgod. The light mass bomb was a very, very powerful bomb. Again, like the Gears thought, this is going to be what ends the Locusts. That was the original thought of this thing. So yeah, they watched it all happen. And with that explosion, we also had the situation where with the emulsion fumes going out, it was a very, very heavy wave that hit everyone that was at Timgod, and the majority of all the Gears and citizens there ended up with Rustlung. After the bomb was set off, it was believed by Harper and many people, like, that was going to end the Locusts, but we all know that that was not the case, and they came back even more pissed off than ever. I don't remember who said it, but I believe it was either in the books or Gears 2. It was basically like kicking the hornet's nest. You really just pissed them off at that point. So the Locusts came back stronger than ever, coming to fight, and we have it where the Gears are fighting off best they can, but even they understand that this is a battle they are not having the best of times dealing with, because, again, they've been on the defensive this entire time on the surface. So with the defensive plan still in place, the idea of everything that's going on after the light mass bomb was, hey, we kind of create a mini opening. Yeah, they're pissed off and angry as ever, and we're still holding the surface, but there's a little bit of an opening we have that we can take advantage of, and that's where we get Hollow Storm, where basically they were finally going to take the Gears and head down into the Hollows, and they were going to fight from that offensive. They were going to be on the offensive finally for once, instead of constantly trying to preserve and protect mankind on the surface. So while they're getting ready for Hollow Storm, they go through and they pick everyone they can for this operation. They pick every able gear, even if they are not able gears. Because of the fact, which we get on the page where Merryweather's introduced, we'll get into Merryweather in a moment, we have it where they take all the gears, whether they have sickness or not, they go through and give them a physical to see what's going on, and we get a lot of the survivors of Timgod. So we get it where they're looked over and they have severe rust lung. The Timgod survivors ended up with very bad rust lung. And while they're going through and the doctors are looking them over, the entire time Harper's kind of in his mind thinking about things where it's just like rust lung. That's at least what Barrick called it, which, little side note for you, Barrick was not the one who coined the name rust lung. That was a thing that was around way, way, way further back. And we can even use Gears Tactics as an example in 1AE, where we had Gabe and them using the term rust lung. Rust lung was already a thing. So, like I've always said, when it comes to the canonical run of everything, you always go games, then the books, and then you go the comics. Games outweigh everything here, so you go by game. So, yes, Barrick was not the original coiner of the term of rust lung. Essentially, they knew what they had, but they didn't know the severity of how bad it was. They didn't know all of the symptoms you would have. They just thought that, oh, we've got a horrible cough, it's a deadly disease, like maybe there's a cure, maybe there's not. They did not know that this was, no, you're terminally going to die. There's nothing we can do. And you get it also where Merryweather comes in, which was basically, this was Harper's doctor. And Merryweather is, okay, how do I put Merryweather in a decent light? So Merryweather is a good person, but not as good as you'd like to expect she would be for a doctor. So in the books, we get Merryweather quite a bit, where she's essentially a bitch. Merryweather is a bitch. So she's helping, she's a doctor, Hippocratic oath, but at the end of the day, she's still an ass to her patients because that's just how Merryweather is. So we have it here where essentially Merryweather claims that, like, oh, you know, you may have this thing they're calling rust lung, but all this fatigue and, like, sickness, it must be from stress of the battle, or you can't handle war properly. That must be what this really is. This isn't something like a terminal disease, you're not going to die from it, you're just not handling it well. Harper and the rest of the survivors of Timgod are very well aware they're not being told everything. This isn't like some big cover-up or anything. It's essentially because of Hollow Storm coming up, the COG are just trying to get everyone, like, at ease so they can just funnel as many troops they can to go down to the Hollows. And Harper's well aware of this, and we have it throughout this page, the next page, the page after. Literally all three of the coming pages, we have it where basically Harper is like, all you needed to do was just tell us what was going on. Harper is the kind of guy here who he's just like, you know, if I'm going to terminally die, I'm going to terminally die. Just tell me what is going on. And you get that throughout a lot of the comic where it's just like Harper is kept in the dark about all of this while he's still trying to fight his way through the Hollows, trying to survive, having the rust lung. It goes through many times. You could have just told us. You could have just said something. Yeah, some of the gears probably would have taken this pretty bad, but just tell us what we're dealing with. Not all this cover-up or anything. And you see it on the next page too, with all the gears making their way to land down for Hollow Storm. You have it where they're all marching their way there, and the entire time you have it where he's thinking just like Prescott wants all of us to go down there, all of us to go down, fight on the front lines, and just go and take the battle to them. All at the while, as I've said before on here, you know, we don't know what we're going up against, and I wish they would have just told us. Which, again, with Harper, it's just a big thing of his story, just he's in the dark. As they make their way to land down, they actually do end up on their grind lift, shot down, and they enter into the Hollow. All the while Harper is being sent down, he's thinking to himself, this is very obviously a suicide mission. This isn't the kind of mission where we're expected to just come on back and we're good to go, because he thinks, how are we supposed to even get back to the surface? The grind lifts are a one-way trip down. There's no way we can just go back up. So it's essentially kill or be killed is how he sees it, and he's very much right. Many people were not expecting to really, come on back to the surface or how they'd make it back to the top. Look at how Marcus and them made it back to the surface the first time. They ended up being shot up there by a rift worm. There was no plan to make it topside. The plan was go in there, drop the beacon, attack the Nexus. That was the plan. There was never really an escape plan made. Now, later on, when the flooding is about to happen, yes, there are some ways that are found to get out of there, but it's never a decision of like, okay, here's what we're going to do, this, and this, and then we're going to find this way up, and job well done, we're all finished. No, that was not one of the plans at all. This offensive mission was essentially a suicide mission. That was what it was. And while Harper is still going down and thinking about this and lamenting the fact that he's a part of this, he's thinking also, like, the one thing I do remember before we were shot down was it wasn't a rainy day. It was a nice, sunny, clear day up there. Nice, a very amazing day. And the ground, the topside ground, they sent us off like heroes as we went on down into the hollows. As they make their way and they actually hit the hollows and get out of their pods, they do see as they look around that it's eerily quiet. It's a very odd beauty of the hollow, and as we see into it is a very actual, if you take a look at the area of the hollows, it's actually a very serene kind of area to look around. And he looks around, it's very quiet, and he says, I don't like this. All the while he's thinking this, he feels very nauseous and sick. He kind of chalks it up right now to having the ride down from the grind lift, being shaken up quite a bit and landing. He even says, I could throw up right now if I wanted, but I'm choosing my best not to do that. Now, as we know with rust lung, there are many symptoms. One of them is nausea. That is a normal one. In fact, earlier on in the panels, at the pages, basically, we have it where he is throwing up into a sink, and we do see the throw up is normally that rustic color from like your lungs and mucus and bile. So he's essentially feeling some of the effects of rust lung right now. Again, they are not very well aware of the full effects of rust lung, so he's just assuming that this is just from the trip down that they're going. And while everything's eerily quiet and they're kind of looking around, it's kind of that situation where it's like, I was tired of waiting, and all of a sudden, they are attacked by the Locusts. And they're actually holding them off pretty well. A squad of Locusts comes against them, and they have all of their guys in their pods from being dropped down. And if you look around in the panel originally before the Locusts appear, you see there are multiple ones shot down. So he's a part of a larger group of gears that are going through. The thought he's having is like, we're actually doing our best to hold them off. At first, I thought we could hold them off pretty well. Unfortunately, they do not take the Locusts. They are a much bigger threat than they thought. Remember, the Hollow is the terrain of the Locusts. They are going to their home turf now. The humans held off very well for the initial attack that the Locusts led off during E-Day. Extremely well. They held off longer than anyone, even the Locusts, thought they would. But remember, they were on your home turf. You are now going into the Hollow. Their home turf. You thought they were a problem up top. This is where they come from. And of course they lose. And Harper's thinking to himself, the lucky ones were killed within hours. The ones that weren't lucky, and you see the next page, which I'm not going to show because it's a little bit brutal with some of the bottom portion. He says, we were taken as POWs, tortured, beaten, killed, eviscerated. They tried to break our spirits, but not mine. We continue onward where we have like the little coffins or like the chambers that they hold a lot of the people they're processing. They're trying to get Harper into one. And he says, they tried and they came close, trying to get me into one of those coffin things. And he says, I don't know what it was inside of me, if I snapped or if it was the rust lung delirium. He says he doesn't think it was, but we're going to cover this in a few moments. He says he snapped, and when they came to take him, and you just see sucker punch, just right in the face. Just, he's like, all the anger of humanity, just wham, right in the face. And he proceeds to beat the living hell out of this Locust. As he's beating this thing to death, he grabs it by the throat with both hands, and per his words, and I'll read them verbatim, think I grabbed his throat next, crushed his windpipe, but don't even remember. So, some takeaways. So, per what he's saying, he doesn't think it was rust lung delirium, just the anger of a pissed off human. But we do know that some of the symptoms of rust lung, another one of them is that you do have the increased aggression, which he doesn't think it's that, but you also have the situation where the stability of your mind, that is also something that comes into question when it comes to Rustlung. Now, he does not remember what he's doing through a lot of it, and he doesn't know the full information of Rustlung, so I'd like to assume this is actually Rustlung that's playing a role in things. My opinion, I think it's Rustlung. He claims it's not, but also he's not told the full facts. I do, because I've covered Rustlung many times on here, so I'm going to assume Rustlung. So after he takes out this final Locust, with his bare hands, mind you, he actually makes a run for it. And we actually see there are multiple Locusts that are behind him that are with the one that is down. And he says, I ran for my life. I made a run for it. I was trying to get out of there best I could. My goal at the end of the day was to see the sun again, to be back on the surface. Once he makes it a ways out, he's actually able to finally hide away and get a breather in. And we see that he's just up against a wall breathing. And he's still thinking, I need to see the sky again. I need to see the surface. While he's resting, we actually have it where over in the distance, I'm assuming he travels even further into the hollow, he comes across other gears that are still fighting against the Locust. Now remember, this is a few hours in, I'd probably say, because Hollow Storm really just lasted like a day. So I'd say this is probably midway through Hollow Storm, you know, as they're going through and fighting. He actually joins them. He joins the battle, and they are able to give him armor or lancer, and we see it's Bravo that he ends up joining up with. And Bravo, for anyone who doesn't know, in Gears of War 2, that was led by a Sir Jace Stratton. That's right, Jace once again returns. The comic series, you see him everywhere. Jace is in charge of Bravo, and he is fighting forward. And as they're fighting forward, they actually do see the surface out in the distance. Like, you see Jace kind of like he's fighting, and you see the sunlight over in the corner. And it's funny, too, because throughout these panels, the first one we meet Bravo, down in the left-hand corner, I thought that was Marcus, but it wasn't. It took me a split second. I'm like, no, Marcus isn't here. At the time Jace is fighting here, he's either making his way to Nexus inside of a riftworm, he's fighting through on the rivers there. Marcus is a lot further away from Bravo than just there fighting with them. Marcus and Delta never fought with, they only supported Bravo as they were making their way in. So as they're going in and they see everything in the distance, you actually have it where now you have it where you have the Lancer in hand, you have the full armor set for Jonathan, and they're going forward and fighting through, and they're actually about to make their way to the surface, and they fight their way through a corpser. And you know what? Against all odds, being taken by the Locust, escaping the Locust, going down in the hollow, he makes it out of the hollow with Bravo. They actually escape the hollow. They make it out. The first thing he says, too, on the page is, I saw the sky again today. And he says, I made it, I did it, and at the very bottom, I escaped the hollow. Now, while they're escaping, it's not just like the mission's over, they make it, the sun's out, it's all happy day and rainbows. No, as they're going forward, there are actually other survivors from the hollow that are coming out with them. Actually, a woman and I believe a child. So they're escaping, and they're actually giving cover for the civilians to get out of there. They have a Raven that's come down, I'm assuming to pick up Bravo. And while they're fighting off the Locusts for the children to get in, unfortunately, Harper is shot down, and he is unable to continue forward while he's defending the civilians. So we do finish the story off with Harper. He is on the ground, bleeding out, in front of the Raven. Everyone else has loaded. The civilians are on. We have it where the rest of Bravo with Jace, they've made it on. And he is currently on the ground right now. You see his armor, parts of it are like shot off. You see the blood pooling. In the previous picture, I believe it looks like he took one to the head. But by the look of this photo, it looks like it might have just grazed the side of his head, but he took bullets through the rest of his body. And as he's laying there with his snub just on the side, he just thinks to himself, you know, no medics around, but that's okay. The sky is so bright, and I finally feel all right, warm even. And I keep hearing this little angel telling me thank you. Her sweet little voice. He's having a memory of the child that he helped evacuate. And it's so sad how the final page goes, because he's laying there bleeding out, like just with the sun overhead and the ravens flying off, like it literally just took off in front of him. And he just sits there and he says, she said she'd pray for me. She'd pray for us all. And that's the end of Harper's story. Man, a lot of these comics just don't want to have like happy endings to the issues like the standalones. Like last we talked about was the Quickening, when we have Ty, and we know how Ty's story ends, and that's where the comic ends. Now we have Harper's story, and this is where it ends for Harper. I mean, depression. That's like the base gist of like a normal soldier in the COG army during the Locust War. Just depression. That's the end of Harper. So Harper's story, the story itself we'll talk about, not just his overall story. I do enjoy it. I think Harper's story is very nice. Harper is the character in the Gears of War franchise who, he's like a background character that a lot of people want to see more of. For instance, you have collectibles in Gears of War 2 involving Harper, where Merryweather wrote down like his prognostics and everything when it comes to like his health. I think prognostics is the right word, but his health report, we get that as a collectible. He was originally supposed to be a member of Zeta Squad in the concept when they were creating Shadow of Rom, but he just didn't make the cut, and I believe they put Kim in there instead of him. He's a character that's like always reserved in the wings if they ever needed like that one character to put in. Kind of like with Alex Brand, they're like the comic characters that sit in the back like, alrighty, whenever they're ready to put us in the actual games. Although, at least Alex got Judgment, Harper's got nothing, so he's just still sitting there waiting. He's like, you know, Jermod got to go into the games, I wonder when I get to go into the games. So, I mean, that's Harper. I do enjoy Harper. Overall, I really do like Harper's story. I think it's nice. The format is different, but it works. I think it's nice to actually see Harper in his full shine and glory for a story based on him. So I like that because if we never got him in a game, we never got anything involving him ever again, he did get his very own story. So I think that's perfectly fine. I think that's okay. You know, with Barrick, he was kind of like just the side character to Hollow. So getting him in Shadow of Rom and getting him in the Zeta Squad, you know, like that was great. I love that. So yeah, overall not bad. The actual story, the overall story of Jonathan Harper, I'll do a character discussion for him. There is a little bit more to add on, but this essentially is his story. So I think this will do it. Yeah, I think this is a good place to put it. So that'll take care of issue number 8. Issue 8 of the Gears of War comic series, Harper's story. I want to thank you all for watching. Thank you all for making this possible. And thank everyone for just being you and being amazing. Thank the patrons, all of you. I'll see you all in the next one. Later!
Yeah.